Welcome to this week's edition of Focus on Connecticut. I'm Tom Appleby. We continue our debates this week. This debate will be for the Attorney General's seat. Dick Blumenthal, running for Senate, has given up his attempt for that. Let me introduce the candidates. They were just joking how often you get Martha and George together on a platform. Martha Dean is a Republican, George Jepson a Democrat. Thank you both for coming by.
You're welcome, Tom.
My pleasure.
I've been reading up a lot on this race, and I had a sense of what an attorney general does. I mean, each state has a different attorney general and a different approach to it, but basically legal advice to the government, law enforcement, prosecution, but a lot of talk in this race has been about jobs. What's the connection?
Well, our current Attorney General has been Attorney General for 20 years. We've had one person for 20 years, one party, the Democratic Party, running that office for 51 years. The last time we had a Republican is the year I was born, 1959. And we've never elected a woman. But truly, over the past 20 years, our current Attorney General has made Connecticut radioactive to law-abiding businesses. We are now voted as the most anti-business state in the country, not 37th, not 35th, not 41st, 50th out of 50 for 2 years running, and as having the worst attorney general in the country for 2 years in a row. I hear that Jerry Brown recently had the honor of actually surpassing our current attorney general as being slightly worse. But this is not an advertisement for Connecticut. This is truly a billboard on every border of Connecticut saying, if you're a law-abiding business, we'll sue you when you're here, we'll sue you when you try to leave. If you're a law-abiding business and you want to grow your company in the future and do well, don't come here. And if you want to grow a business in Connecticut, get out quietly and quickly before we sue you too. This is no way to run a prosperous economy.
I talk about jobs every day because the economic climate in Connecticut and job creation is the most important issue in Connecticut. And what I always say is that every elected official, Republicans and Democrats, preferably working together when we convene in January, needs to be doing what they can to improve that job and that economic climate. The deficit that we have in our state government, we can't tax our way out of it. We can't cut our way out of it. On the long term, we need to help grow our way out of it by creating jobs. This creates economic activity that then generates tax revenues. Fortunately, I have historically a very positive relationship with the business community. Under my leadership, I was recognized by the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is the big advocate for small businesses in the state, for my leadership. I've been recognized by the Business Council of Fairfield County and other business groups as well. There's not a lot an Attorney General can do directly to affect the job climate, but there's some things that he or she can do. One is, as I think Martha was alluding to, we need to be more welcoming to businesses in the state. We need to make it clear to them that we want them here and that we treasure their participation. More directly, I've actually met with dozens of business leaders over the last 4 or 5 months to find out what they think an Attorney General can do. Among the things that they've pushed are, one, more consistent enforcement of our regulations. The executive branch of government sometimes is inconsistent in its enforcement, and as Attorney General, I'm going to work for consistent enforcement. The second thing, and perhaps most importantly, is that, and an Attorney General does play a role here, we need to invest in energy conservation. We have the highest energy costs in the continental United States. By investing in conservation, much like you spend a few bucks to insulate your doors or your attic, and the payoff is huge. We will save a lot of money in this state, and those dollars stay in Connecticut. They don't go to Louisiana for natural gas. They don't go to Venezuela for oil. They ripple through our economy and have a multiplier effect that will help our businesses and create jobs.
Well, George, come on. We're really talking about rearranging the deck chairs. I mean, talking about conserving energy to work our way out of this terrible crisis that we're in. And you said we can't tax our way out of this crisis. Your fingerprints are all over. And I love running with you. Martha and George, it's a great combination, and we get along as friends. But I have to say to the public that your fingerprints are all over the largest spending increase in the history of the state as the head of the Democrats in the Senate during the biggest budget busters of our entire time as a state. And you were Weiker's, henchman as the head of the Senate, getting the income tax passed and then raising it. I have pledged, if I am ever in a position to get rid of the state income tax, I will do it. It is truly harmful to our state economy. There's a study that just came out of the University of Ohio this summer that showed over the past 10 years that when you look at migration patterns in the United States, and you look at the states that have lost population and the states that have grown, every state with a state income tax has lost population. Every state without it has gained population. We are the only New England state right now that is losing population. Every other New England state with their high costs of energy, their high regulatory costs, is bringing population in. We are so anti-business. We have such high business costs. We are such a politicized state government system that it's really very unattractive. We need to get politics out of the Attorney General's office. Your career is as a politician. It is what it is, and it's a career as a Democrat. That's fine, but we've done that. It hasn't put us in good economic shape for the long term. We need to do things differently going forward.
Martha, you've been a politician yourself. You ran statewide 8 years.
Actually, I've never been a politician.
You ran statewide 8 years ago.
I ran as a candidate.
You give generously to Republican conservative
then
causes.
I guess that makes Tom a politician too.
And I have real hands-on experience. We balanced our budget honestly when I was a leader in the Senate, and I worked hand across the aisle. I worked with Governor Rowland. I worked with Republican legislators. So I have real experience in honestly balancing budgets. When I talk about what an Attorney General can do, I recognize there are limits to what an Attorney General can do, but I'm committed to doing whatever I can to make businesses feel welcome and do what we can to reduce costs through energy conservation.
Well, I appreciate that, George, but you said in our first debate you are not a litigator. You happen to be at a firm where there are litigators. You're not a litigator. You do negotiation of union contracts, and that's an honorable thing to do, and unions have a place in society. But we need somebody who's an Attorney General who doesn't have a dog in the fight. I'm not beholden to any special interest, to any ideology or party or industry group. I'm only beholden to the founding values that are in our Constitution. That's what I will uphold as Attorney General. I will not let politics enter and infect the Attorney General's office in the way that they have under our current Attorney General. When our current Attorney General sued Forstman Little over an investment deal gone bad that Erskine Bowles, a Democrat, sold to Denise Napier, it went bad when everything went bad in Wall Street. He sued Forstman Little and sued only the Republican partners and didn't sue Erskine Bowles, a Democrat. This kind of politicization of law enforcement must stop.
No argument there, except first of all, I don't negotiate union contracts. I haven't. I've been in private practice now for 16 years with a superb litigation firm. I've participated in litigation. I know how to litigate, but I view litigation as a last resort. My background is in getting people around a table and solving problems as opposed to being confrontational to, and that means litigation. Again, not afraid to litigate, but it should be as a last resort.
Right, but you did say you're not a litigator, and what we need is someone who has litigation experience. I've practiced law in Connecticut for 22 years, corporate law, securities law, environmental law, a niche practice of defending shooting ranges, consumer law in the pesticides area. I've gone up against the Attorney General's office for law-abiding businesses and won when they bring improper lawsuits, and I've worked with the Attorney General's office all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court on behalf of consumers. And starting out as a fan of the way that office was run, I really came to see it as a full-time media operation. Now, I appreciate that you won't do that. And I acknowledge that's not your personality. And I think that's great, that's wonderful. But the fact is that this office is so mismanaged. Look at the Computer Plus case. This case led to the highest judgment against the state of Connecticut ever for an improper lawsuit that destroyed a woman, arrested her in her home. And who has been put in charge of your campaign? The woman who brought this highly improper lawsuit. I like Claire, she's a nice person, but it's not nice to bring improper lawsuits that destroy people and their lives.
She represented the state in that case. She didn't bring the case herself. She was asked to bring the case. Moreover, it's easy for you to cherry pick 2 or 3 cases over 20 years of Dick Blumenthal's experience as Attorney General. It's easy no umpire is going to make every call perfectly right, and no Attorney General is going to make every call right on every case. I think by and large, Dick Blumenthal has done a pretty good job in figuring out who the bad guys are and going after them and leaving the good guys alone. It's a critically important part of the job that you not litigate, not take a side until you see all sides and understand the facts and understand the law and can bring a case only if it's merited. Again, 20 years and anybody can cherry pick a few losers.
Well, I have vowed to end the frivolous lawsuits. I have vowed to end the sue first, ask questions later approach to the Attorney General's office. I have vowed to end the trial by press release culture of the Attorney General's office and to end the highly inappropriate, improper revenue-raising function, so-called revenue-raising function as the current Attorney General has described it. It's truly the action of a bank robber to go out and into the press and sue a company that first learns about a lawsuit in the media and then say, settle and pay us money, or we'll drag you through the court system for years. And what I do is I represent law-abiding businesses in these cases. The ones who don't want to obey the law, I send to other lawyers. But law-abiding businesses, and we win, but they have to spend years, because we can't get the cases thrown out. We spend years of representing them before they win, and they can't carry that cost of litigation and compete with businesses from Tennessee or New Hampshire or Taiwan. They eventually leave the state. And last year in Connecticut, we lost 15,000 businesses that shut down or left the state of Connecticut. This is a serious problem.
Again, you can cherry pick a handful of cases over 20 years. By and large, Dick Blumenthal has done a very good job of picking the bad guys to go after and leaving the good guys alone. You ran against him in 2002. It seems like this year all you can talk about is Dick Blumenthal.
We need to do things differently. And you have said, until his poll started to tank, you have said you would be Blumenthal light, Blumenthal without the litigation experience. And we don't need Blumenthal light or heavy. We need a totally different approach of upholding the Constitution, of being fiscally responsible. I'm admitted to all of the courts, from the U.S. District Court to the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court. I've litigated constitutional issues, and my highest duty is to uphold the Constitution as the supreme law of the land, the federal and the state constitution. And I have vowed to join the 20 states that are challenging not all of Obamacare, but the provision that requires individuals to buy insurance just as a function of being alive on this earth. There is no authority that the federal government has to force citizens to buy a product.
You've covered a whole range of things in that very short amount of time. Very clearly, you've also said that you've opposed Dick Blumenthal on the tobacco litigation, which I think was one of his finer moments. You opposed him when he went to court to sue coal burning plants. Excuse me, let me finish. Coal burning plants out in the Midwest that were polluting the air that we're breathing. Thanks to Dick Blumenthal's actions, we're breathing cleaner air today. I've applauded Dick Blumenthal for his work in forcing the social networking sites to fence out sexual predators, which is an issue you waffled on in our first debate. You've called me Blumenthal light. I'm a pretty hefty guy, so
no, don't worry. You're doing fine.
But Dick Blumenthal, you also said that he's tanking in the polls. In fact, he's ahead in the polls. And the other fact of the matter is that I have had a consistent message throughout this campaign, which is to say that I admire a great deal of Dick Blumenthal's work. I think overall he's done a very fine job as Attorney General. But I've also said and been very clear since January that I'm a very different person than Dick Blumenthal, and I will conduct myself in office in the way that is true to my own values and beliefs. And one difference I always point out is that I have litigated, I know how to litigate, but I'm a litigator of last resort, not of first resort.
No. Well, you were the party chairman, George, for a number of years, the head of the Democratic Party. That would be like electing Chris Healy. Now, he's a fine Republican Party chair, and he's doing a great job. But the fact is that most people wouldn't put a party chair as the Attorney General in Connecticut. We don't need more politics. We don't need somebody who's partisan, who has been, who has sort of run the tanks over the bodies as a party chair. That engenders a lot of ill will, and there are many people who are Democrats who have vowed to support me because of that. Not because you did a poor job as party chair, but because there's no way to be party chair without doing that sort of thing.
Let's look what I did as party chair.
You're the leader of an army that is partisan by nature. We need somebody in law enforcement who has no allegiance with any particular political philosophy or any particular partisan politics, but instead will do the people's business and uphold the law without regard to personal preferences. Taking the lawsuits that you mentioned, the tobacco...
Let me respond to that, then you can go to that,
well,
right?
Let me just take those three lawsuits you mentioned, tobacco, the coal burning plants, and Craigslist. Tobacco was wrong because the money did not go to stop smoking. In fact, the state has a permanent interest in smokers smoking more because they get a windfall every time smokers smoke. They get more money. It also took, no court ever decided that case. It was a settlement that was the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world at that time, where 500 lawsuits brought an industry to its knees. Now, if the industry was so bad, and I'm not going to defend tobacco, but if the industry members who were sued were so bad, then you would think that the settlement would harm them, but actually it allows them to price fix and to gain more profits in a way that law-abiding tobacco companies can't do. So it allows them to do things that would normally be illegal, price fix, so that those states get more money. There is illegality at so many levels, and the contingency fee contract awarded $900 million to Blumenthal's former partner and partner's wife, later reduced to $67 million in private secret arbitration. So I have problems with it on many levels. I won't defend tobacco companies, but I'm harshly critical of that deal. Then the coal burning plants, we have EPA at the federal level to deal with air that crosses across state lines. with pollutants and EPA. That's their role. There's a citizen supervision that allows citizens to challenge EPA if they don't do their job right. But for an attorney general in one state to try to regulate businesses in another state is just wrong. That is not the way our legal system works. Work within the legal system that exists. That's what the proper way.